Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Sea of Startups. I'm Kim, here with my co host, Kevin Brocklin, and today's show is serving up heat, hype, and hard truths. Trust me, you're going to want to buckle up because we're covering everything from tropical climate tech to robo taxis and some brutally honest talk about fundraising in 2025.
That is right. We've got some heat, hype, and the hard truths. Sounds like a regular old Tuesday in startup land, right? Honestly, we chose that title because each segment hits on one of those themes, and maybe, alliteration is just kind of catchy, fun way of getting a title going.
Yeah, hey, nothing wrong with a little branding flair. I mean, seriously, we have three meaty segments today that I think will change how you think about building in Southeast Asia. First, we have tropical batteries and climate tech. How do you keep the power on when it's 35 degrees with 90% humidity? It's crazy. How do you build a climate startup when policy might not be on your side? We've got a fascinating new report from CSIRO and SEDA that's basically a playbook for hardware founders in the tropics. And then, second, we have autonomous vehicles in Singapore. So big news, China's Pony.ai and WeRide are launching autonomous shuttles in Punggol. Think, Waymo in Asia, in a way. But here's what's interesting. They're not doing the Silicon Valley move fast and break things approach. They're playing a completely different game and it might be genius. And then we have Series A fundraising reality check. We've got fresh data from Carter, insider commentary from VC circles, and some numbers that might make you want to cry into your pitch deck. But we'll also talk about why this might actually be the best time to build if you're smart about it.
Yeah, so as always, we're going to try and mix in some insights to kind of contextualize what this news is going on with. Maybe we have disagreements, maybe we agree. I don't know. The intent is to get a little banter, have some conversation, keep it spicy, perhaps. But knowing us, I have a tendency of going on a tangent. I go off topic sometimes. Kim's here to rein me in. Sometimes keep me under control.
Well, I try sometimes, but sometimes we usually go in different tangents, so that's the exciting part. And we are too polite for too much banter anyway, except when we're talking about whether partnerships slow you down and speed you up. I think Kevin's got good, strong opinions there, but it's great. It keeps us going.
Yeah, guilty as charged. I have a bit of a reputation on being a bit blunt on things. But Kim has the thing about hardware founders being underappreciated, so I'm sure you'll definitely hear about that today as well.
What can I say, right? Someone has to champion the underdog. People literally battling physics to build their products. But look,
Mm.
we want you, founders, operators, investors listening to walk away with something actionable. We are all about CEO of startups. Things need to be executed. Implementation matters. Each segment ends with a concrete takeaway that you can actually use, not just think. Thinking sometimes gets us nowhere, but actual frameworks and mental models.
Yeah, so exactly. So we've been getting some great feedback from listeners just to kind of kick this out there about the people wanting to get more depth, more nuance to the conversation. Have been liking these conversations, digesting the news, contextualizing it. So we're diving into the why behind these trends, not just the what, not just putting the headline out there, but talking about what does it mean and putting it in terms. Why are these Chinese vehicle companies choosing partnerships over going solo? Why are tropical batteries so different? Or why is fundraising market brutal for some and so generous for others? What are the details behind these stories?
So many whys, just like seeking our own purpose. But hey, news drop. We just got featured from Tech News in Asia, so that's some quite. I'm not gonna put it, but it is amazing feedback from the news. So there we go. We're gonna just keep on grinding and just do what we do best with See Your Startups.
Hey, let's. I think we did the preamble. Are you ready to
Yeah.
dive into some of these serious startup strategy issues, Kim?
Yeah, more than ready. Let's start with our first theme, heat. And I mean both the literal tropical kind and policy heat that can make or break a climate tech startup. It's getting hot in here. No one's
Bring the
gonna take that off.
heat.
Yep. So picture this scenario. You're a hardware founder and you're just closed your seed round to build next generation battery storage systems. Your tech works fine, it's beautiful, your pilot customers in Singapore are happy, you're ready to expand across sea, and then you deploy your first system in rural Malaysia and it starts failing within months.
Yeah, I mean, this is not hypothetical. Anybody that's lived in this tropical jurisdiction, and I can tell you myself, how many of my things have just like fallen apart. Just the other day. Sorry, this is a bit of a tangent. I warned you I have a tendency of doing this.
See?
But
Go.
my adapter that I use for outlets, like it just up and like starts crumbling apart. The plastic it just kind of
Hmm.
disintegrates. You look on the inside and like it's nuts. And it's not like I've been exposing it to any abnormal circumstances other than just living out here.
Man, it's just they just can't take the heat. They just can't. I mean, they couldn't. I mean, pun intended, but they can't take the heat that someone, and they couldn't, for lack of better word, they couldn't live up to what their just one job they were supposed to do. They couldn't adapt. So there we go. It's funny because it's just crazy. It's exactly why this new report from SEDA, that Malaysia's Sustainable Energy Development Authority, and CSIRO caught our attention. It's called the Tropical Batteries Report 2025, which Kevin found it, which is great. And it's basically saying if you're building energy storage for Southeast Asia, you need to completely rethink your approach. Whoever who produced that has to rethink their approach about surviving in Southeast Asia or selling to Southeast Asia even.
So big picture stuff. Malaysia wants 70% renewable energy by 2050. They put the target on the agenda. Um, and honestly, like it's ambitious, but it's necessary. We need these sort of energy efforts, and you can't run modern economy on sunshine and wind alone because they're unpredictable. So inevitably, you need battery technology in order to store it when it's cloudy or rainy or the wind's not blowing or whatever the case may end up being. In peak hours, you accumulate all of it, you store it. So like inevitably battery technology needs to be a part of it, whether you're talking about electric vehicles, the many other different use cases, helping the power grid, so on and so forth.
And you need storage too, like you said, lots of it. But most battery technologies, and I'm talking about the ones that make up 90% of the market, were designed for temperate climates. Silicon Valley garages, German engineering labs, not the tropical furnace that is Southeast Asia. And truth be told, you know, if climate change happens, like the 1 degree thing that happens almost every 4 years, Southeast Asia is going to take the heat. It's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a bunch of battery technologies that are out there. I'm sure people are familiar with a bunch of these, the lithium-ion, sodium-ion, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to go through the entire list of it. We even have a sand battery company
Oh, wow.
operating out of Vietnam. If you've ever heard of that, it basically traps the heat because the
Uh huh.
sand holds the heat. So
Oh,
there is some innovation going on in this space, but I think the
right,
key thing is that we need these sort of things because the killer insight here is that tropical conditions are just really tough on the performance across the board, regardless of the battery technology that's being used,
right.
because it's harsh conditions.
Sandman really is gonna come true in Vietnam, right? It's true. Like it gets hot, and then Sandman comes from Vietnam, like Phuoc. Phuoc is one of the hottest places now in Southeast Asia. Is it coming from
Mm.
Phuoc Beach? I don't know. Who knows, right? But let's get specific about what tropical conditions actually means for hardware. We're talking about 35-degree daily temperatures. It is getting hotter and hotter, but that's air temperature. Surface temperatures on rooftops where solar panels live, that can hit 60 degrees. I mean, humidity at 90% for most months at a time. Salt spray if you're near the coast, and most major sea cities are coastal. We're not helping ourselves. And then there's the rain. And when it rains in tropics, it's not drizzling, it's biblical. Oh man, it's
Yeah,
a double
yeah.
whammy.
We have some crazy storms. It's funny talking about the rain while I'm presently in Philippines that's having typhoons cross through. So I've been getting torrential downpours
Oh,
out
be
in this
safe
part
out
of
there.
Southeast Asia presently.
Right.
Um, But yeah, yeah. I mean, when you talk about it across the board, it's just a very tough market for hardware. Like it is really a survival of the fittest. You know, the
Yeah.
hardware Darwinism,
Oh,
and it's really like the robust systems survive, and even those,
yeah.
if you're not, you're just going to degrade faster, faster and faster than any data sheet or whatever, like the technical specs that you got in the lab,
Yeah.
are telling you.
And this report breaks down the failure modes really clearly. High temperature accelerates chemical degradation in batteries. All your, lithium ion cells that should be last 10 years might only just last 60% of it. And humidity causes corrosion in electronic components. Thermal cycling, where temperatures swing dramatically between day and night, causes mechanical stress that can crack housings or disconnect internal components. It's a bit like cars, right? Like why some continental cars just can't survive in Southeast Asia and they perform so much better in temperate climates. Like you have European continental cars where servicing even I don't know, you don't know how many times you service them and it just breaks down
Mm.
out of nowhere in Southeast Asia, and it's pretty much the same thing here. I think similar. I wouldn't say same. It's a bit of an overall generalization, but this is also another tangent. See, I'm guilty as well, and yeah,
I mean, it's true. I mean, you got to be made and durable for the conditions that you're going to be experiencing. I mean, if we live near the Arctic, probably be talking about needing to deal with the harsh cold weather
yeah,
as opposed to the harsh hot and rainy weather and the humidity and all of that. The thing is, when you're talking about battery storage, the main thing that stuck out to me on this is it is true that when you're talking about the performance capability and performing the spec, you're losing a massive amount of your capability in the very beginning of it. And it's almost as if you're talking about like the cell phone story where like all of a sudden it just degrades if over the first 2 years, and you're
yeah,
like, man, it just so happens to align with the new release of the new model that all of a sudden my battery doesn't keep a charge for any longer than 2 hours. Everything starts falling apart. Now, obviously, the big industrial scale batteries and the main ones that they're trying to go after in talking
yeah.
about this,
Yeah.
those ones have much longer lives, but the same thing applies to where like you're losing a large portion of your capability over such a short period of time.
And sometimes I do wonder, is it like consciously done to lock you in a way, like 2 years and then oh you gotta change something, oh well, how convenient, a new model is out and this time it's in orange. No, not coming with any brands, but yeah, I mean the investors wouldn't be happy and then your customers wouldn't be happy and you're probably looking at warranty claims that haha, no pun intended, could sink your company because we're talking about climate tech. I mean, what's the
Yeah,
solution then?
yeah. So there's a couple of strategies that they really talk about. So like one, when you're not talking about the batteries themselves, you're talking about essentially engineering the environment. And what it means by that is like more on like the thermal management side. So like it could be active cooling systems, heat dissipating materials, smarter packaging, but all of that is just like you're adding cost and complexity because if I have to create a cooling system, I have to power that cooling system. If I'm using heat dissipating materials, I have the cost of those materials,
Yeah.
packaging, etc. So it's just layering on potential complexity that may not necessarily be getting at the core root of it. But maybe
Yeah,
there's innovation I'm not seeing there.
it's true, but then my next question would be, because the way I see it, it's like engineering this environment sounds very reactive. It's not proactive. So it's like the cost will add up at some point too, because you keep reacting to it, and then it's like the chase wouldn't end. You keep chasing for the next problem, and it's like there's just too, yeah, like I said, too many ways to do it. But anyway, second option, different chemistry altogether. There we go. Tangent on a different way. Sodium ion batteries, for example, they handle heat stress better than lithium ion. They're less energy dense, so you need more space, but they're more thermally stable. Some startups are exploring iron air batteries, but which are incredibly robust, but slower to charge and discharge. Always a chicken and egg situation, always a plus minus. Yep. And what's the third approach then?
Yeah, so I mean, this is an area that gets me excited, more so because I'm a software guy. So it's like the software-defined adaptation. So instead of just building the hardware that can survive, you're building systems that can intelligently adapt to the conditions. So you have, again, you get to the thermal management, but you're doing predictive management. You're
Yeah.
doing dynamic load balancing, weather aware charge discharge algorithms. You get into a little bit more of of the science in regards to like better utilizing what we do
Yeah.
presently have, with smarter systems to accommodate them. Not without its cost, but place for software to kind of take a role.
And I think this angle makes more sense, because it's not only startup friendly, but it's more proactive. It's more preventative. And I think I can get on with that because instead of competing in manufacturing scale with Chinese giants, you compete on intelligence. Your system
Mm.
might use the same battery cells as everyone else, but it manages them smarter, lasts longer, performs better in real world conditions.
Yeah, yeah, but when we can't talk about energy without addressing the elephant in the room, which is we start getting into the political side
Uh,
of climate
tricky,
tech.
tricky. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so like building batteries is half of the battle, or like improving the way that we're utilizing. The
Yeah.
other half is inevitably going to end up being energy policy, and that's one of the challenges where a lot of this ends up becoming the startup graveyard is being able to tolerate the cycles that are inevitably there.
Yeah, and it's sad because it's like the world is getting hotter every year, and each time it's like there's this one what's that UN that 1 degree conference that they
Yeah,
have
yeah, yeah,
almost every
yeah,
year,
yeah.
and it's sad when you look at how our world is at this point. But case in point, Thailand. On paper, Thailand has big renewable energy goals. The government talks a good game about clean energy transition, but the reality on the ground is that the energy sector is dominated by a few massive incumbents. I think this is pretty normal scenario in Southeast Asian countries where the regulatory framework makes it incredibly hard for startups to scale.
Yeah, and you also have state-owned enterprises that have mostly de facto monopolies in a lot of these segments as well.
Yeah, yeah,
Whether you're talking about the oil and gas side or you're talking about the grid.
yeah,
So it's a bit of a tough place there. Um, and so like there is an additional kicker on top of this. So there is peer-to-peer energy trading where you got your
yeah,
solar panels, you can push excess power into the neighbor's battery system. Um, Technically it's feasible. There's a legal gray area. I don't think it's fully supported in many places because of some of these policies. And so like some of these distributed energy tech plays can be problematic. It'd be
yeah,
really interesting. I've heard a lot of conversations about can we simplify this to where homes can have their own batteries so that they can better utilize their own solar, maybe not push it into the grid, but save it for a rainy day, basically.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I think this is where, you guys, the listeners, have to stay tuned because we are going to have someone on Sea of Startups talking about specifically this. And I'm going to keep it under wraps because it is someone that you might want to hear, and they are going to launch something big by the end of this year. So stay tuned on this one. Hush, hush. The result is that the climate tech startups end up doing, what in industry insiders call behind the meter projects. Oh, that's you can generate and store clean energy, but only for on-site consumption. Maybe for a factory or gated residential community, but you can't easily plug into the broader grid and scale the impact. Scaling again is the issue.
yeah, yeah. Imagine that you're a startup that's growing, and you go to your investors and you're in that board meeting and you're like, guys, great news, our
Yeah.
technology works perfectly.
Yeah.
Bad news, however, we're only allowed to deploy it in small isolated pockets because of the regulatory environment. So we
Yeah.
can't actually scale, but
Yeah.
the tech works.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be that'd be an interesting
It's like
story.
pew, 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 or
Wah,
in
wah.
Malaysian terms, it's like potong steam lah. And it's not it's not just Thailand, different sea countries have different regulatory approaches, different
Mm.
incumbent interests, different political sensitivities around energy independence. I think this again is consistent with how structurally Southeast Asia is. Like there's too many small countries within the region. What works in Singapore might not work in Indonesia. What's legal in Malaysia might be restricted in Vietnam. I think this has been consistent in our episodes as well, in the past few ones.
To be honest with you, I think founders just need to think a little bit more strategically around navigating a lot of this. So, the thing that stuck out to me because of this report is that it did look a little bit progressive. It did recognize some of the challenges. It did end up highlighting some of the big things. It did end up looking at it from a framework that I think is necessary. And inevitably, when we start thinking about renewable energy and trying to figure out ways of more sustainable, self-sufficient energy in light of the increases in demands that we're going to have with more AI, more data centers. It's going to stress the amount of energy resources that we have. So we need to rethink holistically in regards to the entire value chain across it. And batteries are going to be front and center of that. So across the region, and especially in Malaysia, where there's a lot of data center investment, inevitably we need to think more on in regards to renewable and battery technology. And the tropical area that we're at is basically just a torture chamber for the sort of hardware. And so if we're going to be able to survive in this pressure cooker, then we really need to highlight it. So I think that's one of the really big things, and kind of the highlight of why I thought that this was a good story for us to put on the docket today.
Yeah, and also one heads up for future climate tech founders would be perhaps one idea would be to maybe become part of the policy conversation because back end seems to be pretty robust. There's not much of front end on navigating all these policy talks about how do you actually survive or try to navigate around surviving in this torture chamber because I'm sure you've seen some smart founders who are pretty active on social media spend as much time in government ministries as they do in their labs. I mean, they're not just building tech, but they're helping shape the regulations that will determine whether that technology can scale.
Maybe you can kind of relate this back to the practicality and just list off some of the key frameworks from here, and then maybe give us the meta lesson that comes out of this report. Yeah.
Ooh, first framework, environmental design thinking. Don't just stress test your product in the lab. Get into the real tropical conditions as early as possible. So adapt, but not like Kevin's adapter that failed pretty badly. Partner
Yeah, that
with
th- that
unity.
thing that thing fell apart.
It melted. Partner with
Yeah,
universities
yeah.
in partner with universities in hot, humid countries. Set up test installations in Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines. Fail fast, fail cheap in R&D. Not after you've scaled manufacturing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it comes back to the torture chamber that I referenced before. So you really got to put it through the stress and strain that you're going to get out into the field. A lot of the technology out there has been in more isolated labs that are not necessarily specific to the tropical conditions here. So we
Yeah.
need more design, environmental design thinking for the specifics that we have here. And what about the second framework? Yeah.
Regulatory arbitrage strategy. Instead of trying to change policy, find the pockets where policy already supports what you're building. Malaysia has feed-in tariffs and net metering policies that are friendly to distributed solar plus storage. And Singapore has regulatory sandboxes for energy and innovation. Start there, prove your model works, then use that success to expand into trickier markets. Singapore is a safe market to Tesla. It's a good test bed because of where it is and how it is, and lots of
Yeah.
government support. And we all know that at this point now. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
they're
what's
they're
the third one?
usually
Yeah.
a little bit more straightforward on being
Yeah.
accommodative with the sandboxes. The
Yeah.
challenge is that some of the other countries in the region have on the sandboxes is they set too high of a bar to be able to even
Mm.
enter the sandbox in the first place. So
Okay.
that's a challenge on being able to get some of the innovation getting in there as well.
Stakeholder ecosystem mapping. For every market you want to enter, map out who the players are, not just customers, but regulators, incumbent utilities, local partners who understand the political dynamics. In Thailand, maybe that means partnering with PTT or EGAT instead of trying to disrupt them. Gotta partner with the big boys, man, to scale even better.
Yeah, I mean, PTT's got a handful of CVC related entities that are underneath them, and they're all concerned about looking at the innovation there. Petronas in Malaysia, same thing. They've got a number of programs. They're looking for partnerships. They're looking for innovation. They've got teams that are associated with that. Pertamina over in Indonesia, they've got programs. So a lot of the players in the oil and gas space have been making a lot of investments into renewables and different forms of energy. And so
Yeah.
there is the possibility of looking at some of those players. And then you have folks like Shell. They run the Livewire program. Every country has different iterations of it. So there's players in the energy space across the region
Yeah.
that could be potential partners for some of this innovation, and it can help you kind of get around some of the challenges on the regulatory side because you're dealing with the behemoths. You're not just the little guy going in and saying, "Can I play around here?"
Yeah. And Shell's, I mean, as you heard, Shell, as it is with the live fire thing, they're not climbing up. I just had to say that. Anyway, fourth framework, and this is crucial, climate adaptation as competitive advantage. Don't think of tropical conditions as a constraint. Think of them as a feature. Yeah. It's all about the mindset. You got to just think of
Yeah.
it as a privilege that you're working with that. If you can build energy systems that thrive in 35-degree heat and 90% humidity, you've got technology that can work anywhere. So you can survive in the torture chamber in Southeast Asia with this heat, then I guess you can survive in more temperate climates as well. Think of that as an opportunity. Every challenge is an opportunity. We all know that too. And the tropical market isn't just Southeast Asia; it's huge chunks of Africa, Latin America, and India, and the Middle East.
Yeah, exactly. So I think just to wrap up here, so that we can move
Yeah,
on to our next topic. I think the meta lesson here is that the point of this in bringing this up in climate tech in general, which is not necessarily my area of expertise, but it's an area of interest for sure,
yeah,
is that it's not just an engineering challenge, it's a systems challenge. So there's an
yeah,
overall sort of end to end, not just building better batteries, but better batteries that can work in different political, regulatory, climate, physical realities of the tropical markets and the systems that are putting them in place and managing them as well, so that we can do better with what we have while we're
yeah,
also creating better as well.
yeah.
So yeah, shall we move on to the autonomous vehicles? I think that's another interesting story that was in the news recently.
Yeah, let's shift from literal heat to manufactured hype. Oh, next up, autonomous vehicles in Singapore and why the winning strategy looks nothing like what Silicon Valley tried. So there you have it, heat hype and hard truths. Climate tech in Southeast Asia isn't for the faint of heart, but if you can survive the torture chamber, think you can you'll survive anywhere. And look, we didn't even get to talk about autonomous vehicles or Series A fundraising realities today. And we'll save those for next time because honestly, there's just too much good stuff happening in this region. And before we go, quick reminder, we just got featured in Tech News Tech in Asia, which is pretty amazing feedback. So if you're finding value in these conversations, hit that subscribe button, leave us a review, and share this with other founders, operators, or investors who need to hear this. And if you've got thoughts on climate tech, battery technology, or navigating regulatory challenges in Southeast Asia, hit us up on LinkedIn, Kim Yo and Kevin Brocklin. We actually read the comments and engage with the community. So until next time, stay smart, stay sustainable, and remember, if your adapter can't survive in Southeast Asia, neither can your startup. See you in the next one.